Hello, everyone. This is Khalid Saleh. I'm the CEO of invesp, a conversion optimization software and services company. We're very excited to present a unique webinar tonight with a unique also guest host. We today have Eric Enge with us. If you're familiar with Eric, he is a lead co-author on the art of SEO. Really, the art of SEO is a must-read book for anybody who is interested in SEO. It's actually a must-read for anybody who is doing any type of online marketing. It's a required reading for anybody we hire at invesp. Also, you might have seen Eric if you attend any of the online marketing online marketing conferences, SMX, PopCon. I mean, you mentioned it. Eric is there. He's one of those presenters that everybody would love to hear and get some of his knowledge. He's also a regular columnist at some of the very well-known blogs, whether it's Moz, Marketing Land. He's written at Forbes, Copy Blogger. So really, I think the topic is really interesting, and I love how Eric chose this topic. Good content must die, and an amazing speaker. With that, Eric, thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure. So what I want to talk about today is the notion that good content must die. And I will explain why that is. So Khalid has quite kindly covered the basics of who I am. I'll just add that Stone Temple Consulting is a 60-plus person digital marketing and SEO agency that works in content marketing, SEO, and social media for clients from medium to large enterprise in size. And I'll share one more fun fact about me, which is if you've ever played the game of food. In 1984, I was world champion in one particular foosball event at the World Championships, which were held in Dallas, Texas. But in fact, it have people from all over the globe attending, and playing. So that was a fun thing. Little color background on me there. But in any case, I'm going to be focusing on content marketing today, and that's the reason why we talk about why good content must die. I'll explain that statement as we get into it and give you some ideas as to what you're supposed to do instead. But I really want to start with what are the goals and how you should think about it. Now, keeping in mind, a lot of people are doing content marketing because they're looking for SEO results, and that's fine. But even if your focus is SEO results, in our opinion, you should view your day-to-day goal as a content marketer in this light. Start with a focus on building your reputation in your market space, growing your visibility in that market space, and growing your audience in that market space. And then you see here at the end, I said, oh yes, let's get some links too. And the reason why I put it that way is if you start with a focus just on getting links to drive SEO value, it will inevitably lead you to do things that are bad for your content marketing program and your business. And you don't want to do that. If you focus on reputation, visibility, and audience as your three primary objectives, that will get you to the point where you are, in fact, going to get the best links to drive your SEO, but it will keep you focused and centered on the things that are safest for your marketing strategy. So part of the reason why I say that is that you have to view the environment that we live in today as an ecosystem, right? It used to be when we looked at doing SEO a decade ago, that there were parts of the web that you might think of as dark corners. And you could go get a whole bunch of links from these dark corners of the web and then have them point to to your website. Do not worry about the site you're on. There's no human beings that care. So, gosh, I can make all kinds of money by publishing this content in these dark corners and not worry about any damage if nobody ever looked at them. That part of the web is gone, right? That's no longer the case. What you're doing is transparent and visible in a pretty easy way to everybody. So what you really have to get to is, I have a goal in any content marketing program of building relationships with media and bloggers, influencers, and of course your target audience, your potential consumers. So you have to keep that in mind at all times. So that's going to lead you away from doing things that might be viewed as manipulative in nature. And focus, what I'm showing here on the left, publishing great content on-site as well as great content off-site, and then using social media, PR, and direct outreach to make the world aware of what you publish and to help build those relationships with your target audience, the media bloggers and the influencers. So this is sort of my pitch to you to view this as, how can I add a great deal of value in my marketplace to the content I publish? And I don't mean just write a whole bunch of garden variety articles that I'll be explaining throughout this, but how I can really move the understanding of a marketplace forward in a material way. So with that sort of preamble set up, I now want to give you some information on what kind of content marketing works. And I'm going to start by showing you some data from a couple of different studies. One here, this is from a study done by Moz and BuzzSumo. They actually looked at 1 million total articles, but for purposes of this chart, they sampled 100,000 posts. And 75% of those posts had 0 external links pointing to them, 0. So nobody thought enough about the article to implement the link to it. And that same 75% that had 0 external links had 39 or fewer shares. And so most content kind of gets thrown out and more or less gets ignored. And that's just a fact of life. So another slice at it, this is from a study done by Chartbeat. In this one, you see an x-axis that talks about, time people spend reading content. And you'll notice that, just to understand the color coding here, the bright colors, the reds and the oranges, mean very high number of articles. The blues and light blues being not so many articles at all. The dark blues is actually the smallest quantity of articles. And if you look at this chart carefully, you'll see that most of the stuff gets low read time and low social share. And that's kind of consistent with the Moz and BuzzSumo data I already showed you. Then you see some things in the top left there, that top left quadrant, they get high social sharing. And then, obviously some down in the bottom right quadrant where you see things with high read time. The thing that's really telling here, though, is the top right quadrant is virtually empty. And that means the amount of content that gets both high read time and high social share is very low. Very few articles get both. And that's pretty interesting because we're all used to, so many of us are used to, well, gosh, when I get a whole bunch of social shares of my content, I've done something right. I've probably driven my business forward and helped grow it. Yeah, not so much, right? That might not be what it's telling you because you know what gets tons of social shares? Really funny, cat pictures get tons of social shares. So, that's not going to move your business forward. So we're going to dig in a little bit deeper as we get in. I'm going back to the BuzzSumo and Moz study now. And for this one, And going a little deeper into the data, what they did with 1 million pieces of content, 1 million articles they looked at, is they used Pearson correlation coefficients to measure the correlation between social shares and getting links to a page. Okay. Now, social shares would be the metric that so many people use. Links are much more solid measurement of content value because there's far more effort into implementing them and commitment on behalf of the person implementing them. So keeping in mind that they did this measurement of Pearson correlation coefficient, just so you understand the numbers, a -1 would mean a total negative correlation. A +1 would mean a total positive correlation. A total positive would be every time you do one, you always get the other. So that if total positive correlation would mean that shares and links go up exactly together. And a value of 0 means no correlation. They're basically unrelated. You look down here on the bottom right, and you see the number 0.01. That's really pretty much 0. So this data says there's nearly no correlation whatsoever between social shares and getting links. Now, as I go through the following slides, I want you to keep in mind that a value of 0.3 represents the beginning of a significant correlation. All right, so let's dive in a little further. First of all, there's no social network that does well. So you can see here that the best of these is Twitter, and that's still 0.02, as opposed to needing to get to a value of 0.3, so less than 1/10 of a significant correlation. So this is the story, right? Most content gets shares. Well, most content gets neither, but of those that get one or the other, most get shares or links. And that's really what this is for. All right. So, here's another slice of the data, but it basically leads us to the same conclusion that, total posts, very low correlation, but even posts with over 10,000 shares, the correlation is still only 0.101, so pretty weak in terms of showing any tendency to get links. However, if you look at some specific sites that were looked at during the study, there are some that get a very high correlation level. Here are 4 sites that have a correlation ranging from 0.73 to 0.95. All those numbers are significantly larger than 0.3, my metric for when you start to have real correlation. However, the problem with these articles is that it's fairly small sample size. But they went a little bit deeper, and these sites here, New York Times, The Guardian, The Atlantic, and New Republic, have a much more significant number of articles in the sample dumpster study, and they still have a strong correlation, ranging from 0.43 to 0.58 here. So those pieces of content, or these sites, appear to have very strong correlation. The things you'll say is, gosh, these people have a strong, brand. I mean, New York Times, Atlantic, New Republic, Guardian. But the other thing that's true about these sites is they focus on informing journalism, right? So, and the observation was made throughout this study that informing journalism appeared to do well and tended to show a much higher correlation. So to make this work, though, you have to be recognized as an authority or an expert. And so bear that in mind. I'll talk about that more as we get deeper into this. Here are some other sites that have a very strong correlation, ranging from 0.4 to 0.63. So that's interesting. And what characterizes these sites? Data-driven research studies. They produce a tremendous amount of content based on actual data research. This is something that we find works very well in our experience here at Stone Temple Consulting. In fact, we do a lot of data-driven research as part of marketing our helpful. And by the way, data-driven research doesn't have quite as high a threshold of needing to be accepted as an expert as opinion-forming journalism. You do have to be very credible in what you present, how you present it, but that's something you might consider along the way. So the other thing that was interesting in the study was just looking at the average length of content. You see that the overwhelming majority of content pieces were less than 1,000 words, and then the next biggest segment was 1,000 to 2,000 and so forth. An interesting thing about this is if you look at the correlation based on content length between shares and links, between 1,000 and 2,000 words appear to have the highest correlation. Still below that 0.3 threshold I told you about in the beginning, but at 0.113, it tends to be fairly, a lot better than less than 1,000, which is at 0.02. So, you don't want to force the length of your content to be, oh gosh, it has to be between 1,000 and 2,000 words. That's not what this should lead you to, but it should give you some sense that people tend to like more authoritative or more in-depth piece of content, because even 3,000 plus words at 0.072 has 3 times the correlation of pieces under 1,000 words. So longer form content seems to be a factor that matters. So just for reference, by the way, I mentioned we do a lot of data-driven studies at Stone Temple Consulting. Here's one I'm just highlighting from on mobile again, the update that Google did last year to make mobile a ranking factor. So it's got 3,100 social shares, and it also got some links. So 208 different domains, almost 2,800 backlinks. So really strong result there. That was a data-driven study. And by the way, one of those links was from the Wall Street Journal. This is actually the top of the Wall Street Journal article, where it shares the image we published in the study. And it starts with a little title on some level consultant. So our company name is the 3rd, 4th, and 5th words in the article. Pretty awesome. So a practical and personal example of how data-driven studies can work for you. Okay. So now I've given you a little bit of this background. Let's talk about where we go. So I'm going to go back to 2003 when marketing pundit Seth Godin released a book about purple cows. And the theme of this was, gosh, if you're driving through the American Midwest and you're going by farm after farm and you've seen thousands of cows along the way, you usually don't have anything to say about any of the cows you pass by. And then, of course, you see the one that's purple, and it's like, oh, suddenly you're talking. So the theme here is to do something that really stands out, or, as Seth puts it, be remarkable. And let's just focus on that for a second. The phrase "be remarkable," it means be worth remarking about. And that means you have to go past this garden variety content. I'm going to underscore that a little bit more too, because here's a typical chart of the makeup of the people in any given market. Right? You have your innovators, you have your early adopters, and you have your early and late majorities, and finally your laggards. So the innovators are the first ones to adopt some new thing, and then followed by early adopters. The majority, those are the vast part of your audience, and then the laggards are the people who just the last to ever adopt anything new. So as you think about when you're creating content, who should be the target for your content? If you want to build your reputation, your visibility in your audience, and you want to get some links to your content, and you have some social shares, who's going to do that? Well, it's certainly not the early and late majority of the laggards. The innovators and early adopters are the ones in the audience for spreading your name, helping you build your brand, your visibility, your reputation. And they're the ones who might talk about something that you write. Okay, well, now that we know that, how do we create content for that audience? They're certainly not going to take, a garden variety article like, how to apply for a mortgage. That's a piece of content which is written about tens of thousands of times by now. So, you might want that content for some page on your website, but that's not the heart of your content marketing campaign. Right? Part of your content marketing campaign has to be about how you can get major steps over and above what's been published out there. So this is where we get to very good content is not enough. So as I said, good content must die. All right. Now, to be fair, having good content in your content marketing campaign is what must die. You might have other pages on your site where you just give useful information people need it. The fact that thousands of others have written about it is not an issue. If you're using it to build your reputation, visibility, and audience, good content must die. You have to focus on elite content. And you have to understand who your audience is, early adopters and innovators. Create content in your content marketing campaign for them, because those are the ones who will listen and share and learn. So next up, I'm going to walk through some more ideas to take this a little deeper of how you can create content or actually channel opportunities that will help drive links for you. So here's the question. How do you create content that stands out? Well, one way to do that is to leverage a mega brand. There's a nonprofit, 10 by 10 is the name of the company, a campaign called Girl Rising. And they were able to strike up a partnership with Intel. And the reason why this was interesting with Intel, and well, it's not always so hard to strike a partnership with a larger brand, is the larger brands, are slow moving. You're going to be faster moving. And even though you think they have more money than, you could ever imagine, they actually don't always have the budget to do these. They don't have the focus that you do. It's harder for them to make a business case to do it. And they don't have the subject matter. So you'll find a surprising number of larger brands open to doing that. And here's what happened for 10 by 10 when they did this. They covered in USA Today. And this chart on the bottom right, or on the right here, is Google Trends chart, searching on Girl Rising, which is the name of the program they were promoting. And you'll see that around about January 2013, a huge spike started. And their visibility went through the roof for an extended period of time. But even if you go over to the far right, you'll see that that visibility is still greatly elevated over where they started the sports campaign. And that's, 2 years later. So it'll give you some idea of the impact of partnering with a large brand. Another idea, invest more. And by this, I mean invest more in a specific area. You don't have to outspend everybody and everything. That's crazy. So a company called Best made a product called American Apps. They invested more in Instagram, a very specific social media platform, as a way of growing their visibility and building relationships with people. So investing more doesn't mean you have to spend millions of dollars. You just focus on one vertical and one brand theme and invest more in that area. What BestMade did that was so cool, if you jump back to it here, they put together all these pictorial essays with just like 20, 30 pictures of specific, adventure trips. And they share those through Instagram and they publish them on their site. And they built a really strong audience in Instagram, which I'll talk about in a second. But here's what happened to their visibility over time. Because they focused on building the best brand and the best relationship in Instagram, this is what's happened to their visibility. It's gone, nice shape of the curve here, up and to the right. So we like it. Oh, and it shows up top here. Instagram, they have 85,000 followers, and a lot of those, by the way, are influencers who do actually from time to time write about them. So that's how they built the relationships. Here's another one. Be unique, right? So Seventh Generation is a product that sells cleaning supplies, paper towels, toilet paper. So this is what the company does. They sell all these basic household goods. But what I'm showing you is actually the top of their homepage. In fact, their entire homepage is a digital magazine on eco-friendly ways to live, in particular around things you can do around your home. So even though that's not what they sell, and they're not selling ad space, this is how they get people to their site and build a loyal following. You actually have to click on this product link over here on the top left in order to actually buy anything. There's no way to buy anything on the homepage. So what they did is they got vertical in different ways. They're getting vertical on a channel like Instagram. They get vertical on a content feed, in this case, eco-friendly living, and they found a way to establish leadership in that. And they focused their content there, and they developed the expertise. And based on that, they built large following and established the leadership role as, in the eco-friendly home living space. And here we go. Bottom left here, you see they have 1.3 million followers on Facebook and 76,000 on Twitter. So, it's done very, very well for them, and they've actually built a really good business in the process. So, another one. This is actually kind of similar to the Instagram one, but I'm taking a slightly different direction here. And that is, these new social media platforms and things are coming out all the time. Try jumping on one early. One of the things that's really cool about a brand new social media platform is that people will start following you very quickly. You can easily build much larger following on a brand new social platform than you can on a well-established one. And so it's a fantastic approach to building a high degree of visibility. What I'm showing here is an individual guy called Zach King, who has 3.5 million followers online. Not even a company, he's just himself, and he just started doing stuff with it early and did cool stuff. So, basically, he recognized the new channel and jumped on it. So it can be worthwhile testing these things out. Just be prepared to dump them if they're not working. Very important to do. You just try it out. Doesn't appear to be working, abandon it. But otherwise, you should be able to build a much larger following than you can on another social channel. You can establish some leadership there. So for his part, by the way, Zach King netted a sweet deal with HP as a result of his involvement in Vine. So that works well for him. Okay, another idea is to promote better. And there's a lot that goes into this, right? Better titles, really compelling images. Make sure you tune the content to each channel you promote. What you do if you're emailing a major media person is different than if you're publishing on your blog. It's different than if you're publishing Facebook, which is different than if you're publishing Twitter and so forth. Use social media to create visibility, leverage influencer relationships, and then the related follow-on content and pushes. Last one of this series of slides is the notion of working harder. I can't tell you, as a culture, we've become amazingly lazy, right? And I can't tell you how many studies we've done at Stone Temple where just because we are willing to have somebody spend 200 hours on one piece of research, manual research, it was the only way to do it. But we dug out information that other people didn't have and published it, got fantastic results. This one I'm showing you here is a study published by Concert Hotels, done for them by digital marketing agency Distilled. where they analyzed the vocal ranges of a lot of the most well-known singers today by, basically getting all of their recordings and measuring what the ranges were. So a fantastic piece of work and a really nice graphic around. So, focus, key, deep and manual research, put the hours in where other people won't. And, here we go. This piece of content, 111,000 shares on Facebook and 7,100 links to the site. Tremendous visibility. So just a few more slides, and then I can take some questions. I want to talk a little bit about author authority. Long ago and far away, Google had a program where they would potentially show your picture in the search results. I'm showing one here. They took that away a little over a year ago. You can't forget that Eric Schmidt once said this in his book, The New Digital Age. So information tied to verified online profiles, is what I have written, will be ranked higher. You didn't say may be ranked higher, will be ranked higher. And then at the end here, the true cost of remaining anonymous then may be irrelevant. That's a pretty strong statement. And, if you're going to think about that, let's put aside for a moment the Eric Schmidt quote, and now kind of net out things from the entire presentation. If you're going to create content which is compelling and different, and it attracts the influencers and the really early adopters to write about it, has to start with being an expert. You have to be better at something. Part of what I hope I've shown you is you don't have to be better at everything. Maybe some slice of your business that you go a lot more deeply, like seventh generation, and get smarter about being eco-friendly than any of their competition, and became an expert at that. Then create great content. And, engagement and stuff like that, comments, reshares, isn't really a direct search ranking factor, but humans use social signals to help identify expertise and quality of content. And then, work hard to develop relationships where you can interact with other experts online, because people notice that too. And then overtly help people, and then put yourself out there to write guest posts and, that great content for high authority sites. All of these things will help you build your personal authority and fit in the overall theme of creating things that will draw both shares and links, right, to drive SEO benefit, but it also helps humans understand why you're an expert. And here's a comment from Matt Cutts in an interview I did with him back in 2012. By doing the things that help build your own reputation, you're focusing on the right types of activity. Those are the signals we want to find and value the most anyway. So arguably, it will most likely lead to a search advantage as well. And in fact, recently, Gary Illyes commented and said that if you have been working on your own personal authority, you should continue to do that. And if you have been using Google's rel author tags, you should continue to do that. Don't worry what those are if you don't know, but this notion of building authority is really, really important to Google. So, and then ultimately build your engagement, because that's a really strong signal, as I said a moment ago, that helps humans, understand why your authority and make them more likely to share your content and more likely to link to it as well. So, thank you very much. That's what I have for my presentation.
Very good, Eric. Thank you very much. Really very informative, full of actually tips if just sit there and listen to things that we can implement or anyone can implement. There's just a lot to do there. We got a few questions, and just a quick reminder, you can use the Q&A feature in the GoToWebinar to send any of your questions. So Eric, let me throw a few of those questions your way and then get your thoughts on them. one of the things that you just mentioned, linking a piece of content showing that you're the author for it, and I think you answered it, but I'll just ask you the question: how do you do that? And if this, do we know for sure, besides what, the couple of mentions that you mentioned, that it will actually impact ranking for a piece of content?
Yeah, so I think we have pretty good information that Google is tracking who writes what piece of content. And they have a variety of algorithms to do that. And so that is something they're tracking. It's a little harder to be certain about exactly how they're using that data. But just for sake of argument, if you're in the search space, digital marketing space, like I am, and you are, Khalid,
Mm-hmm.
if a piece of content is written by Danny Sullivan, you probably place a little more weight on that. That's just you and me as humans.
Definitely.
Right, and Google knows that, right? Google's totally aware of that, and they might potentially be using data like that as a direct ranking factor. I can't tell you 100% for sure, but what I can tell you 100% for sure is if you succeed in building a lot of brand reputation or visibility around your expertise, and by the way, it doesn't have to be personally, it has to be someone in your company, representing your company, but I'll just continue to refer to it as us individually. If you succeed in building your own expertise, you will get more links to your content than other people do. Right?
Yep,
so
definitely.
we know that that's an SEO ranking factor.
Yep.
So we don't have to go any deeper than that to know what we need to know about, should you build authority. So somebody also asked about implementation.
Yep.
There are tags called rel author tags, rel equals author. You can just search on that in Google, and it will explain how to implement them. It's a little bit tricky to implement correctly. I don't think it's really an absolute must for people on the call. I think it's if you're highly technical, you can take time to do it. If you're not that technical or don't have access to someone who's technical enough, don't worry too much about it. I think just focus on building your author authority. Obviously have your name in the articles you're creating, and make sure that if an article has your name on it, that it's something that would be of interest to the influencers and the really early adopters. I'm going to go all the way back to that chart. There we go. The innovators and early adopters.
Definitely. No, that makes lots of sense. Another question: links versus shares. How do you evaluate? How do you evaluate a success for a piece of content?
So the thing, I think it goes that deep into it, but what we know now is that social sharing as a standalone metric is a really poor measure of business success. Doesn't mean you should ignore it entirely, but if you were to view success of content based on social sharing alone, it is likely that it would drive your content strategy in a direction that would provide little value to your business. I talked about it earlier, but I'll just draw it up again. The effort involved in implementing a link as opposed to doing a quick social share is actually fundamentally different. Somebody has to go into a content management system or into HTML somewhere and actually modify something. That's a little different than hitting a reshare button, throwing in a 2-line comment, and calling it a day, right? And we know that social sharing is driven a lot by emotion, right?
Yep.
And you can invoke emotion in ways that have little to do, again, with business value. The other thing that I want to talk about is the commitment involved in a link is fundamentally different than the commitment involved in social share. I share something on Twitter, it's gone from your feed in 15 seconds. isn't like I put my whole reputation on the line on that one post, right? If I put a link on my site, it's static and it sits there, and my other potential customers see it, right?
Yep.
So the
Definitely.
commitment level is really very different for a link. So to me, links are a really good value. I think click-throughs to your site, number of people who read it, and then I think time spent reading it is good. Do they come back and visit other content in the future? And of course, they see additional pages on the site. Those are much better metrics to tune to.
Yep.
They involve real engagement with you.
That makes a lot of sense. Another question on this sort of a follow-up question. Any preference to a particular tool to track backlinks to a particular article? I saw that you used Majestic in the presentation, but any preference to any of the tools?
So, they're all really good by all. There's three that I use most often: Open Site Explorer, Majestic SEO, and Ahrefs. They're all really good and have different strengths and weaknesses. Open Site Explorer is not as strong when you get to links that are below the higher authority links. They don't crawl the web as easily as Majestic and Ahrefs. But in my opinion, Open Site Explorer has the best metrics. And the metrics that I do, domain authority and page authority and metrics I trust most. Okay. And the way we do it here at Stone Temple Consulting is we actually pull data from all three, and then we integrate it in a master spec sheet, dedupe it, and then we go get domain authority and page authority metrics for all of the links that we've pulled.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
okay.
That works well. Now, by the way, if it's your own site, you should also pull the data from Google Search Console.
Of course.
And that actually, and you'll find out, by the way, that all four of those sources will show links that none of the others shall.
Oh, excellent.
So that's why it's useful to do all that.
Excellent. In terms of recommendation, guest posting versus posting on your own personal blog, any preference there, or just mix the two? What are your thoughts on that?
When you first start out, especially if you're a small business, you have no audience, right? I mean, you don't have anybody who's used to reading yourself. So starting by publishing on your own site, you can put the most wonderful articles in the world up there, and other than your mother, no one's going to go read it, right?
Yep.
Whereas, and so how do you build that audience? And it's really wise, in my opinion, in the early days of trying to build your own audience and following, to start with a heavy dose of publishing off-site or guest posting, because now you're getting in front of other people's audience. Just make sure that wherever you're doing that guest posting, you're publishing in a place that actually has an audience, real readers, and do what it takes to get in this situation to publish in those places. So that will help you start build your audience. So in the beginning, I might do 80% guest posting and 20% on my own site. When you get a little more mature in your business and you start to build your own reputation, I would adjust that mix downward, towards 50-50, and then maybe as your reputation continues to grow, you might go to even more in favor of your own site. But I do think until you've built your own audience and following, you need to get in front of people.
Well, that makes
go where the people are.
Yep. That makes sense, because you might publish the best posts on your own blog, but if people are not there, so what's the use? I mean, it's just out there, just like shouting into an empty space. So,
yes.
couple of other questions. There has been a lot of talk about influencer marketing and reaching influencers, because they help you amplify your content. They're sharing it to their network. That they're really doing some of the marketing for you. Any tips you have on influencer marketing, reaching influencers, because there are a few of them and everybody's trying to hit them, so it becomes really challenging.
Right. Well, I mean, it's all a matter of how you approach the conversation. Your goal in approaching an influencer at the beginning needs to be, how can I help them? It should be literally the only thing in your mind. Okay, at some point you want them to share your content, you want to link to your content, you'd love to interview them, any number of things you might like to do. So how can I build a relationship with them where I'm adding value to their day? And that needs to be front and center what you're trying to do. Because they are not going to turn around and do squat to you until you've solved that problem.
Yep.
Right. So I have really important relationships these days that came from 9 months or 9 or even more months of effort to show that I was worth communicating with, who continuously trying to add value to them. And so you have to do. You have to get focused. It's about them, not you.
Definitely.
And then they'll turn it around at some point and start to add value to you.
Very good. And that's what I tell, I talk to business actually small and medium and large, and they're always thinking that it's going to be something easy. Well, marketing is rarely something easy. You really have to invest the effort. It's not a light switch you turn on and off. You have to invest the time and the effort. You're building a relationship, and that's really what ultimately influencer marketing is. You're building a relationship with somebody who's important. So it will require more time and more investment from your side.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I mean, there's a lot of things in marketing where people say, well, gosh, what's my strategy to spend $1 and make $10 in profit?
Yep.
And the answer to that is not applicable. There are no such strategies. Forget about it.
Yep.
Look, I'm not saying that they don't happen in immature markets, but in any mature market with lots of competition, those equations don't exist.
No, definitely. So, Eric, I think we're coming to the end of the webinar. Can you just tell us a little bit, for those who are attending the webinar, those who are watching the webinar on YouTube, and we will have the webinar recording by this coming Tuesday. We'll send a link to everybody. But can you just tell us a little bit more about Stone Temple? I know you guys have been around. You're one of the pillars really of the online marketing community. But for those who are watching this webinar and don't know a lot about Stone Temple, just kind of you've mentioned it, but the kind of clients you work with, the kind of services you guys offer, and we'll finish it with that.
No, absolutely. So we do offer content marketing, SEO, and social media services for our clients. What that means is that we can both help you understand what your strategy should be and the like, and how to execute it, but we can actually help you execute it as well. We do that for companies ranging from Fortune 50 companies, of which we have multiple clients and some of the world's most trafficked websites, to startup enterprises that are aggressively looking to get ahead. So it's a wide range. We've more than 60 people in the company and based out of Massachusetts here in the U.S., but we have clients from all over the world.
Awesome. And we'll have your contact information throughout the slides. Thank you everybody for attending the webinar. I hope you found the material. I surely found it myself very useful, very, very helpful. With that, Eric, thank you for taking the time. For those of you who are attending the webinar, our next webinar will be talking about A/B testing, giving you a 101 on A/B and multivariate testing. And until next time, please keep an eye on the blog, on the Invest blog, and on our YouTube channel. Thank you.
All right, thank you.